Hi guys, welcome back. This is the final episode of the Breakout game. Next time it will be a completely different game that we'll be dealing with. But right now we're going to finish off Breakout, so we need to do a game over screen, we need to do a main menu screen, we need to handle high scores, and we need to handle level changes as well. And all of that, of course, happens, say it together with me, after the fade. So when we get to 0 lives, we are going to have to go to the game over screen and show the game over message and what score they had, and then if they have a new high score, then we're going to save that new high score. So inside ball, if I switch to here and I go to my move ball class, I'm looking for when you die. So when game lives is 0, we want to go to the game over screen. So if game controller dot lives equals 0, go to the game over screen. But we also want to save the current score as well, because when we get to the game over screen, we want to determine if they've got a new high score, and if they have a new high score, we're going to set that new high score, let them know things. So to save the current score, I am going to use player prefs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the integer, and it's going to be called last score. And it's going to be game controller dot score. And then I'm going to use the scene manager. Now, by default, the scene manager isn't available, but all we do is we press Ctrl full stop, and we add using scene management. And now we can do load scene. And the scene we're going to use is game over. And we haven't done the game over scene just yet. We'll do that in just a second. So we're going to save the current score to this variable here called last score, and then we are going to go to the game over screen. Okay, so now back into here. Now we're going to create a new scene, and we're going to call this game over. So we're giving this scene the same name as the name that we gave in our load new scene. So I'm going to call this game over. And it's going to contain a canvas, because all we really need to do is just have it to say game over, and then we're done. Well, I mean, obviously we're not done, but I mean, whoa, that's a big screen. 1920 by 1080. And match 0.5. So this is the same canvas scaler that we set up in our previous video. So we're just keeping the same properties here. So we're having a reference resolution of 1920 by 1080, and we're going to match width and height. So nothing spectacular here. So okay, and now we're going to add text UI, and the text is just going to read game over in big bold letters. We can make this a little bit bigger. Actually, we can make it sort of take up the entire size of the screen, because that's very much what it's going to do. So game over, we can't quite see it just yet, but if we make it 84, you can see that we now have game over here, over here. And we can put it in the middle, and then center it, and we can change the color. Let's make it a yellow, orangey yellow. Yeah, orangey yellow. There we go. And we'll make it a little bit bigger as well, 96, and we'll also make it bold as well. So just a little bit more final. Actually, we could probably go a little bit higher than that. 128, 56, 200. Why not? Let's make it in your face. Okay, so game over, and we will put another bit of text here, UI, and this one we'll put directly under here, and we will call this one last score. And we'll make that 72 and center that as well, and we'll make this one a kind of green color because why not? There you go, there's our last score. And then we'll duplicate this one just by pressing Ctrl D. So all I did was I had it selected, you press Ctrl D and it creates a copy of it. So you can do that as many times as you want. And this one here is going to be new high score. And the color for that will be pink. Why not? Okay. So we'll give these all names. So we don't need to give this one a name. We don't really need to give any of these a name, but it's nice to give them names. So this is currently called text 1. So we're going to call this one last score. And this one we're going to call new high score. Okay, so that's our UI for the game over screen. We're going to now add a blank object here. Just drag that down to here, and we're going to call this game over screen controller. So this is game over screen controller. And we are going to add a new script. So we have our bricks, our game controller, our move ball, and our move paddle. In this one, we're going to create a new script, and we're going to call this game over screen controller. And then once you have that done, just drag and drop it over the top of game over screen controller. Or if you're not confident enough to do that, you can just click on add component and then just type in game over, and that's the one you want there, is the game over screen controller. So going back over to here into our code, remember that we have our last score here. So I can go over to our game over screen controller. Building collections. We do need text though, so I'm going to have two variables here, two fields here that will reference the player score and the new player high score. And again, I have to add another namespace, so I'll do this one manually. Engine.ui. Okay. So now our text is no longer with a red squiggle underneath it. Alright, so player score, player high score. The first thing we want to do is we want to turn off the high score, because we don't want it to have any text inside there. And the player score we're going to set to the current player score. So that is going to be last score equals player score. Oh, no it doesn't. Last score equals player prefs dot get int. So I'll just go over this for a second here. So in our move ball here, we have this player prefs. If you've never seen this before, it's Unity's way of storing data that you can keep between sessions. And by between sessions, I mean between when your game is running. So right now in our current session, we want to set the last score to be this particular value here, which is the last score that the player achieved. And we're going to store it inside this key value here. So key value is just a string, so it's just something that we can use to identify it later on. So we're going to identify this as last score. And then in the game over screen controller, I'm going to read in that value, but I'm going to give it a default value of 0 just in case it's missing, because if it's missing then we don't know what value we're going to get. It does default to 0, but we're going to force the default in there anyway. We're going to explicitly create the default value of 0. And then we're going to get the last high score. And we haven't actually set this yet, but we're going to, we haven't ever set this because we've never done this one before. So, okay, so, we can't call it high score because we already have a high score here. So we'll call this int high score. And again, we're going to default that to 0. So the logic here is going to be, if the player has actually scored something, in other words, they've got a score, they have something greater than 0, and the score is greater than the high score, then we're going to set the player's high score to be that new value. And then we're going to tell the player what that value is. So, if last score is greater than 0, in other words, they scored some points, and last score is greater than high score, then we're going to set the high score to be the new value. So that's player prefs, set int, and then we're going to use this high score again. So we're going to record that high score, and then we're going to tell the player what they scored. So we're going to say high score oh dear. There we go. So if the player has scored more than 0 and the last score is better than the current high score that we've recorded, that we stored in our high score player prefs, then we are going to set the new high score and then let the user know through the UI that they've got a new high score. And then lastly, we're going to set the player score to be the last score. And we need to set it to string because it needs to be a string. So we're just going to convert that using the inbuilt method to string. And then the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to create a coroutine that waits 5 seconds and then loads the main menu. Now again, we haven't done the main menu yet, but we will do that in just a second. So we will do start coroutine. And we'll just create a method called wait. And we haven't got a method called wait, so we'll just code that up. So we need an IEnumerator. And again, we don't have IEnumerator, so we need to add using system collections. And now we're going to do yield wait and return new wait for seconds. So we're going to wait for 5 seconds, and then we are going to use the scene manager again. And again, we need to add our using statement. That's it. So the screen's going to show, the game over screen is going to show for 5 seconds. It's going to display information on the screen, and then after 5 seconds it's going to load the main menu and then go back to wherever we are. Okay. Right, so while we're in here we need to go to our build settings, and we have our scenes game scene added. If we add our open scene, then we also get our game over scene here as well. Okay. So that's pretty much it for the game over scene. Now we can test it just now. We're gonna get an error when it tries to load the main menu, but at least we'll get the game over screen. Okay, so I need to load the previous level. So if I go to scenes and then I want game over, I want game, in fact. Okay, so let's score some points. Oh dear, only got one life left. Can I make it? Oh no. There you go, game over. And we have a null reference. Why do we have a null reference? Because we didn't set things up properly. So let's go back to our scenes and our game over. And you see that we have our game over scene controller and we have none and none for player score because we didn't do it properly. Oops. So we want to drag our high score across to our high score, and we want to drag our last score across to our player score. So we'll go back to scenes, game. All right. Oh, there you go. So now we have a new high score and we have our score there. And you see that scene main menu cannot be loaded because it hasn't been added to build settings. So we will do that right now. Okay, let's add a new scene for our main menu. We're going to add a canvas. So create canvas. And again, we're going to make the screen space. No, we're not. What we're doing? We want scale with screen size 1920 by 1080 and 0.5. Okay, and inside here we're going to have a big old bit of text that's going to take up almost all of this, and it is going to be called... Nice thing about the new Unity UI is these snap to lines. Very, very handy. Okay, and we're going to call this bricks. And centered, and we'll make that bold, and we'll give it a nice yellow color. I like yellow for titles. There we go. Bricks. And we'll have text in there. Let's make this quite big as well. We'll have that just underneath here. I'll just call it current high score 0. And again, we'll center it. Again, you guys can tidy this up and make it look as cool as you possibly can. This is really programmer art, placeholder stuff. So don't think this is a shippable game in any means, but certainly art-wise anyway. And we'll make this font quite big as well. So current high score 0. So that's good enough there. And we'll give this a name as well. We'll call that current high score. And then the last thing we need is just a big button that says play. So we're going to create a big button that says play. And that button is going to exist down here. We have to go into the text object here. We'll call it play game, and then we'll change the font size to that's good enough. And yeah, so that's us. So that is the main game, main menu. So we will call that main menu. And we will also add that to our build settings as well. So now we have game, game over, main menu. Now the first scene we want when we load the game up is going to be the main menu. So we are going to drag that up to the first position. So now main menu is level 0, game is level 1, and game over is level 2. That's the sort of rough order of the games anyway. Right, next step is we're going to create a blank object here, and the blank object is called main main menu controller, and I'm going to create a new script, and it is going to be called main menu controller as well. And again, we go over here, click on main menu controller, the game object, and then we want to add main menu controller, the script. And if we go back to our code here, go to main menu controller. It doesn't really have any updates here. Actually, no, we do need the start, but we don't need the update. Well, no, let's keep the update in, because I want it to be that when you click on the button or when you press the fire button, things happen. So yeah, let's keep that in there. So the start, what do we need to do at the start? We need to output the current game, the current high score. So public text high score, and again control full stop, and I want to add Unity Engine UI. And then on start, I'm just going to copy this across here. So the current high score is this. So we get our player prefs get int high score could be 0 or it could be a non-zero value. And the text that we're going to output it to is this here, which is this format here. So I'm going to say that the high score dot text equals so it's whatever text we have here plus the current high score. Now running this will actually give us 95 because our last high score was 95. So running this, what? Oh no, we keep forgetting to do this, and by we I mean this idiot that you're looking at here keeps forgetting to do this. If you go to the main menu controller, you need to drag that out there and then make sure you wire these things up. I keep getting ahead of myself and I apologize. Just so excited to try and get a fully working game here. Okay, so there we go. We have our current high score, and then we have a big button here that doesn't do anything, and we can't click or do anything just yet. And we also have it as that blue background. So click on main camera and change it to black. So when you run it, it will now be the proper sort of black color that we had the rest of the game there. Okay, onward, coding. Okay, so that's the start there. We also need to have a public click event, and we're going to call this play game, and inside that we are just going to have scene manager, which again we need to add our namespace, load scene, and it is game. That's all we need to do. Or is it? What we want to do though is we want to reset a few things. So we actually want to reset the last score, because the last score is going to be 0 when we go into the game. So we're going to do player prefs dot set int, and we're going to set that to 0. So when we start the game, we're going to go in there. And then in our update, we want to say if the player presses the fire button, that's going to be the equivalent of starting the game. Input.get button up, fire 1, and we have a function called play game, so let's call that function if we have that there. Okay, so now I should be able to play the game by pressing play game. That takes us into the game, and I should also get it when I press the control button. Awesome. So there we go. And you see that we have our lives are reset to 0 there. Okay. Sorry, our score is reset to 0. So we have a player high score here, and then we go in the game, our score is reset to 0. Okay. So that's the main menu done. I don't think there's anything else in there. I mean, there's not a lot of code in here. So we have our public click function that happens when you play the game. So when you... I never wired that up. Oh, that's why, because the mouse button is wired to there. Oh, that's why. Oh. Well, we need to solve that problem. Whoops. So the ball gets served when you click the main menu, the mouse button, left mouse button. So we didn't actually wire this up properly. So to wire it up properly, you want to click on the plus over here and then select the object. The one we want is the main menu controller object. And then the function we want to call is inside main menu controller, and it is play game. Okay, so when you click that button, the game starts. And when there are no bricks left, we want to reload the game and then make the game a little bit faster, but we also need to remember the high score. So I'm going to leave that. Are we going to leave that for next time? Let's have a think. Well, we could do it by counting the number of bricks hit. So let's do that. Okay, let's go over to our move ball here, and I'm going to create a new variable here called bricks hit. I'm going to initially set that to 0. So we're going to count the number of bricks hit. So if it's not the player, then that means a brick has been hit. There already is a bricks hit. Let's not call it bricks hit, let's call it brick count. Okay, so go down to here, so where it is a brick that was hit, we want to say brick count plus plus. So if brick count is equal to 20, in other words we've hit all the bricks in the wall, we want to save the last score, because what we're going to do is we're going to reload the level. So we need to keep the score from level to level, from load to load. And there's no real easy way to do that. Well, actually there is an easy way to do that. It's using player prefs. So there's no way to do it in code, because as soon as we load the level, the objects here get destroyed and so on. So set int, and it is going to be game controller dot score. And then we're going to use scene manager, and we're just going to reload the scene. Now up here, what we have to do is we need to create a start method, and that is going to tell the game controller what the player's score is. So game controller dot score equals, and then it's going to be player prefs dot get int last score 0. So when we start this level, we are now going to set the score to be whatever the last score was inside player prefs, or default to 0 if player prefs doesn't have a last score. Let's try this out. Right, so bricks, current high score 95, play game. Alright. And the score gets copied across. Oh yeah. Alright. Nice. Okay. Well, I think we're done here. I think this is it. I think we have a completed Breakout game. So I guess the challenge is now we have a new high score. So the new high score is 375. So I guess the challenge for you now is to, when the player comes back into a new level, maybe you want to set, so currently the speed is set to 4 minus 4 for the speed. So maybe you want to have like a speed variable here inside player prefs, and you want to increase the speed maybe to a maximum of 8, because it's probably going to be too fast at 8. Yeah, every time you increase the level, you increase the speed, and the way you can do that is you can store that inside player prefs. Obviously, when you start the game, you want to set the speed to be 4 and minus 4, but it's up to you what speed you want to give there. So yeah, I think this is it. We're done. One game down, 4 more to go. Well, there we go. We finished Breakout. I thought that it would be another episode here, but I just kept going. So yeah, so I haven't decided what the next game is going to be. I think it might be Snake, but I'll let you guys know, obviously, next time. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. If you liked the video, then thumbs up. If you didn't like it, then thumbs down. If you didn't like it and you do thumbs down, then please leave a comment below and let me know what your thoughts were on it. So yes, I hope you've enjoyed this series. Like I said, next time we will be dealing with a completely different game. So that is Bricks. So until next time, thanks very much for watching.